Thank you, Dukes. Vice President Kamala Harris made her 6th stop in Madison tonight after being named nominee. But tonight's rally was different, with several big-name musicians entertaining the crowd. WMTV's Mark McPherson was at tonight's event, and he joins us live from the Alliant Energy Center with more. Mark?
Tabitha, right now they're sweeping up the empty cups and excess popcorn. But earlier tonight, the vice president spoke to a very energetic crowd. In fact, it felt more like a concert or a convention than it did an actual rally. There was a DJ. As you mentioned, there were multiple musical acts. It's about as high energy I've ever seen in a rally, actually. But when the Veep took the stage, she talked about her core issues in this campaign. Of course, abortion is near the top of the list. Healthcare is as well. That energetic crowd did respond favorably to most of the things she was saying. She then called on that crowd to take action.
Let's spend the next 6 days so that when we look backward after the 6th day, we will know we did everything we could, okay? So now is the time to knock on doors, to text, to call, to reach out to family and friends and
Today's stop in Madison was her 3rd swing state stop of the day. She began the day in North Carolina, then she went to Pennsylvania, and she stopped here in Madison. We looked at our itinerary for the next couple of days. There's a lot of swing states. She's going to be crisscrossing out west, going back east, back to the Midwest. In fact, on Friday, she is going to be back in Wisconsin. In Milwaukee, we will have full coverage. Reporting live at the Alliant Energy Center, Mark McPherson, WMTV 15 News.
Thank you, Mark. And former President Donald Trump was in Green Bay this evening as a part of 2 stops to the Badger State this week. The rally featured many people, including former Packers quarterback Brett Favre. During the rally, Trump said wars wouldn't be happening right now and inflation would be down if he was president.
Look at how they've treated you. They treat you like garbage. They treat our whole country like garbage, with open borders, with all of the horrible things they've done to hurt our country, inflation that should have never happened, allowing Russia to go into Ukraine, October 7th, and Israel. All of these things would have never happened if you had a different president.
Trump's next rally is in New Mexico on Thursday. And Trump has one more stop in Wisconsin this week, and the Harris campaign announced another stop as well this evening. She will be in Appleton on Friday at 6 p.m. Then they will both be in Milwaukee when they will have dueling rallies. Trump will speak first at Pfizer Forum at 7 p.m. Harris has an event scheduled at 9 p.m., but we don't know where that rally will be yet. And the vice president has made multiple trips to Wisconsin since she was announced as the nominee. She held her first rally on July 23rd in West Dallas, then returned with vice presidential nominee Tim Walz on August 7th. Then 2 days before accepting the nomination in Chicago, Harris and Walz campaigned an hour-and-a-half north to Milwaukee on August 20th. Then exactly 1 month later, she was in Madison for a rally at Alliant Energy Center, which is also where she was tonight. Then on October 17th, she visited Milwaukee, La Crosse, and Green Bay. And Trump has been in Wisconsin at least once every month since April, where he started in Green Bay. He was then in Waukesha in May, Racine in June. He then accepted the nomination for president in Milwaukee at the convention in July. He held a town hall in La Crosse in August and was in Prairie du Chien in September. October 1st, he was then in Waunakee and Milwaukee. Then the next day, he visited Juneau.